Namaste, one and all. I would like to thank TEDxIIMShillong for having invited me to talk today. There are myriad experiences which we gather as we walk along the path of life, and foremost among these are the ones which relate to our profession, which definitely gives us the identity of who we are and what we have worked for the major years of our lives. In my musical journey, there are lots of colorful mosaics which fall into place like magic. At the start, like the very first sa that we learn, I can say the two families getting together as one, my Tamilian parents and a Bengali family of Bhattacharyas, who were inseparable friends, sharing the parenting of 5 children in one house, opened up both the South Indian tradition of Carnatic music and the Bengali tradition of Tagore music, and placed this family in Delhi, and the additional culture of Hindustani music also fell into place. I was the youngest amongst the 5 siblings and grew up speaking Tamil and Bengali at home, and of course listening to Tagore music, listening to Carnatic music, the great Madurai Mani Iyer, and Masterji taught us Hindustani music. The first major mosaic of influence, I would say, was Masterji Shri Balram Puri, who inculcated and increased our love for music. And he would teach us classical music. At the same time, he would bring records of film compositions by the great masters of the 50s and the 60s. Studying in a convent school, I learned to enjoy English songs too. So, Binaka Geet Mala and the Friday Date with You were very joyous occasions for all of us when we sang along, and we also did the twist. By the time I shifted to college in Mumbai, my love for Hindi film music, those days the words Bollywood was not coined, dominated my other interests of music. And I love to listen to Hindustani classical music, especially Amir Khan Saab, who influenced me enormously and kind of transported me to a very serene spiritual world. One incident in my life which I can never forget is that my aunt and I arrived in Bombay, and we took a taxi to the Japanese Buddhist temple in Varli, and we had brought a letter which would enable us to stay there and for a few days till we found a place as a paying guest. But unfortunately, the head monk couldn't give us a room, and we were really stranded, and my aunt had no clue what to do. At this point, we met a stranger who said he would help us find a place. So we got into a taxi, and I was very surprised because my aunt is normally a very suspicious person about strangers, and she allowed him to direct us to another place. I still wonder how she trusted him. So we landed at another Buddhist temple, which was in the Bombay Central Hospital. There was a Nair hospital there, and we landed there, and there was this Buddhist temple, and the monks just had a look at us, and he opened the door and said, "You can stay here as long as we want." Now, this stranger didn't even wait for us to thank him. He just disappeared out of our lives. I will say that he was an angel and one of the brightest and the most colorful mosaics of my life. In my professional career, I have been influenced by a lot of composers and singers of different genres, and I imbibe by listening to their music. It's the small things that you learn as you go along which falls into a bigger picture, Nothing is unimportant, because sometimes even listening to bad songs, you relearn what you should not be doing. And I think listening is a very, very significant part of ear training and discipline. In fact, one teacher scolded me at one time and saying, "You are practicing these notes as like a laborer. You will stay in the same spot for many years, even if you practice it for 5 hours. What you have to do is bring life into each note. That's what makes sense." So I would say working without passion or interest is not going to take us anywhere. But at the same time, I'm saying music is a passion, but what happens to the bread, butter, and jam that has to be on the table? And that comes from business. And about business, I really feel that perfecting the art again is very important. One legendary broadcaster, Mr. Amin Sayani, asked my aunt a question, and she took me to meet him. He said, "Auntie, have you come to Bombay to make money?" My aunt said, "No. I want her to sing well. I want her to polish her art. Once she sings well, she will make money. I'm not worried about that." Let me go to the 70s when I first met Lata Mangeshkar and got the opportunity to sing with her. And her perfection and her total dedication to art will always stay in my mind. I will cherish it all my life. When the legendary singer-composer Sri Hemant Kumar gave me the opportunity to sing with her in Rajkamal Studios for a Bengali film called Shriman Prithviraj, I had 4 lines with her. Those days, songs were recorded with artists and musicians live in a recording session. Now, 2 mics were placed in the room. After having learned the song, I waited, and then the door opened and Lataji walked in. Of course, I was extremely nervous when I saw her, and my hands went cold and I didn't know what to do. Anyway, I had to sing the song with her, and I was actually so entranced watching her sing that when in the final rehearsal, when I had to sing my lines, I completely forgot. I got very, very gently rebuked, said, "Don't forget to sing your lines." And then the final take happened, and I sang the lines, and as I was walking out, she said, "Can I drop you somewhere?" I said, No, Lataji, I'll take a taxi and go. And now I will, for her, to show you her professionalism, dedication, I'm going forward by many, many years when we sang a song together, Lataji, myself, and Pam Chopra ji, and they were just, each one of us had few lines to sing. And what really happened was that we did the song together and we left. And after a month later, when I met her in another studio, she told me that she had gone back to do those 5 lines again because she felt that she had not given her best. Now, for a person who had already worked in the industry for 40 years or 50 years, to go back and do those 5 lines which she felt were not perfect, really shows us how professional, how dedicated she is, and how she treats every song as if it's her first song. I think that is a very, very important trait that I learned from her. And another trait which I learned is not to use unnecessary embellishments or grace notes in a song, which will negate the importance of lyrics, emotion, and the personality of the star you're doing playback for. Coming to Padma Vibhushan Manna Deji, with whom I traveled all around the world, he was a great influence. He was a graduate from Scottish College, Calcutta. He was a boxer, he was a wrestler, and he was interested in football like most Bengalis. And he had a great sense of humor, but he was so serious when it came to music. He spent years of his life learning the traditional approach to music. But what really impressed me was his strong individualistic style of singing any song. Be it a Bengali folk song, a contemporary song, a romantic song, a Kabuliwala, he had, or even a Western song. He had his impact, and my understanding of his kind of music, which I really greatly admire, is that once you've set yourself and chosen the path of music, you learn or train yourself in whichever style you feel it suits the best for you. But you have to keep the antennas alert, and you have to keep your mind and heart open to all other influences, learning new skills, and admitting that the 7 notes of music have great, great possibilities. There are many ways to reach heaven. Lakshmikant and Pyarlal were like 2 peas in a pod, and they really thought alike. To tell you this, I'd like to tell you one incident where I was sitting in the studio and learning a song from Lakshmi ji. And at a certain point, Lakshmi ji looked at me and said, I feel before the second antara, there should be a vocal alap. And antara is a verse. So before that, he said, I'm going to ask Pyare to put a vocal alap. And before he could communicate this to Pyare Bhai opened the singer's booth and he looked at us and said, Lakshmi, Kavita ji ko hall mein bhej dijiye. Second antara ke pehle maine ek alap dala hai. Meaning that he had put an alap in the second music. I really got goosebumps thinking how these 2 people think so similarly in music. It was really, really magical incident. It was really a magical incident. Let me go to R.D. Burman. R.D. Burman performed, R.D. Burman personifies a mystical mosaic for me. So many colors of the Vibgyor, so many cheerful brooks, so many serene rivers, and a kaleidoscope of the world. When he composed a song, one felt that the 7 notes were just created by him. Same notes, different throw of voice, volume, syncopation, enunciation. One could learn a sea of things. It was like notes coming out of an Akshaya Patra. Let me give you an example of a romantic film song. दिल ने कहा चुपके से ये क्या हुआ चुपके से क्यों नए लग रहे हैं ये धरती गगन प्यार हुआ चुपके से ये क्या हुआ चुपके से. Supposing I had to sing a bhajan, then all that would change would be my application of the notes. The notes are the same, the notes don't change much, but the application and certain grace notes that we take. Bhajo re bhaiya Ram Govind Hare Bhajo re bhaiya Ram Govind Hare. Again, supposing I go to another studio and I'm asked to sing a ghazal. A ghazal is, as you know, it's Urdu poetry, and it can be romance, it can be spiritual romance. Again, just the grace notes change. Muhabbat karne wale kam na honge Muhabbat karne wale kam na honge तेरी महफिल तेरी महफिल में लेकिन हम ना होंगे मोहब्बत करने वाले कम न होंगे. Subhash Ghai, Shekhar Kapoor, Vidhu Vinod Chopra, Sanjay Leela Bansali, a lot of these talented visualizers. I was taught to perceive that the presentation of the song from the actor or the situational point of view was far more important than singing it the way I would want to sing. In the 90s, my generation of singers got the opportunity to work at their best and succeed. A.R. Rahman was like a fresh young breeze with novel ideas of arrangements, great understanding of the modern sound, and an introducer of fusion approach to songs. Just on a plain, simple harmony, sometimes he would make me sing my lines as many times as I wanted, improvising it differently each time. Then, I would go home, and months later the song would come in the radio and I would listen to it and say, oh, I think I have sung the song. But music had been added, chorus had been added, and a lot of my improvisations had been cut and pasted at different points, all sounding absolutely magical. It's a magic of editing and mixing. Great use of the technical facilities which were available during those times in the music industry. At this point, even if you stayed in the industry for many years, one had to be flexible to these technical changes, the methods and the styles of recording. It's like, having a piece of cloth which can be fashioned into a garment of any style, of any era, provided the material is not dated. Similarly, musical notes can be made to sound Western, Eastern, Arabic, Chinese, all based on the grace notes and the approach. Every note can be understood in different ways: depth, spirituality, virtuosic, entertaining, emotional. So many facets to it. And all this actually came more to my mind after I married the internationally known violinist Dr. L. Subramaniam. My perception of instrumentalists and music became wider and beyond Bollywood. He has been an innovator, a collaborator with international musicians of different genres. I got the opportunity to work with jazz musicians, world musicians, orchestras. I saw the evidence of music cutting through the barriers of caste, creed, and religion and color. Once on stage, these varied artists took the 7 notes and it became their language of their own communication. Within the same composition, one could hear the raga approach to it, a jazz progression, Western Baroque style, a rural color of another nation. Each person, so interesting to see them interpreting music in their way, in his or own style. No evidence of ego, but imbibing from one another. Like I said before, it's the same fabric, but it's how you fashion it in your own style and to suit one's own personality. The basic values remain the same: learning, listening, watching, mastering, evolving, emerging as an individual identity and succeeded in making your own mark. I love the number 7, not because it's my birth date is 25 and I'm a 7, but the 7 notes of music, Vibgyor, the 7 colors, the 7 Ds which characterize, I would say, success, like devotion, dedication, discipline, determination, direction, decisiveness, and destiny. Once we've set our goals and decided to walk the path and cross the obstacles, sometimes we have to cross the Rubicon. Being a social being, you acquire and you assimilate from people around you, collecting and stacking information and events in our brain. When I look back at my professional life, I see how my path has been lit by innumerable people who fell into place like a mosaic. Very mystical and divine. Like the sun that shines on us every day, shines on us and enlightens our life, I hope education and spirituality will enlighten the lives of my fellow beings. पूरब से सूर्य उगा, फैलाओ जियारा, जागी हर दिशा दिशा, जागा